Alrighty. Well, I got up very early and may have just dodged a bullet. I was charging batteries and running the laptop for quite a long time, and yeah, the sun wasn't good enough, and I was charging my phone overnight, and I got up in the middle of the night and decided to put my phone back on the charge, and I have a tendency of playing around, supposedly trying to go to sleep in bed, but then spending 2 hours playing around on my phone. So anyway, I went to charge it, and I've realised it friggin' wasn't going to happen. There's a little light that stays on a particular thing inside, and if that's not on, you're flatten the batteries too much. This doesn't happen very often. Anyway, back to the point. I thought I was under a bargain. Stayed awake, half the night with excitement. I'm going to get a bargain. Ford Transit van, 2001, medium wheelbase. It's got the, mostly not windows in it. I don't think it has any, no, it didn't have any side windows. Got the, what's his name? Cargo barrier. It's been used by seems to be an Indian guy that I just rang up about 10-15 minutes ago. And it's got a common problem that a lot of them have. Now, they have a tendency to blow injector pumps. And it's just one of the things they do. Apparently, it's $500 for another pump. It can be... You'll really find anyone who'll do the job for less than $500. It's more like $1,000 worth of labour. If you go to a mechanic, it's probably $2,000. So anyway, I rang this guy up and, oh yeah, I'm going to be out, but I'll be back later, blah, blah, blah. And, well, having read someone with a similar system, it was an idiot on, one of these guys who calls himself OffGrid, blah, blah. He bought a van, and he was going to be the next big YouTuber. And, he already had his channel name, OffGrid, blah, blah, before he had even started doing the van build. I'm not joking, before he started doing the van build, because he was going to have, a couple solar panels or whatever on the roof of this transit van. He had the same problem. From the comments in his video, I, come to learn around about what to expect for parts and fixing. This idiot, like all retards, went to the dealership. The dealership charged him $7,700. No shit. He bought the van for about $7,000. And the going rate is $10,000 to $12,000. They didn't tell him about the problem, but as he's driving home, it went into limp mode. And he, fucking check engine light, all this bullshit going and reading the manual. Oh, this is limp mode. Limp home mode, whatever you want to call it. And, yeah. So anyway, the $7,700 he spent fixing the bloody thing, he might have got it for $8,000 because the fix-up price was about the same as the van itself, and that stifled his plans. And well, he had to go back and get a job because no road trip now after the cost of that. So I thought, well, rightio, this thing, it's got a cracked windscreen, and it's got, a dead pump. And the guy told me that, look, honestly, it's been sitting in the driveway for a year, and yeah. So I said, can you start it? And he said, oh, well, I used to be able, the battery's flat. But I said, well, could I put jumper leads on and start it? Oh, well, I sort of could, but there's something to do with the clutch pedal where I put the clutch in and it doesn't want to. But, like there's some of these vehicles, there's quite a lot, because I know the Mercedes-Benz vans have it as well, where you've got to put the clutch in before you can start it. There's quite a few cars like that, as you know. he thought maybe the switch in that's, you know, for some reason it's just not doing it, and just won't start. And I thought, well, I'll get down there, and you know, his English isn't. He sort of knew what he was saying, but I could tell that he had zero understanding of vehicles. And so I thought, well, I'll get down there and I'll get him, you know, maybe roll it out the driveway or whatever, or pull up my car if there's enough room beside his carport, because I reckon we might be able to get the jumper leads across. We'll have a fuck around, see what we can do. See if we can get the engine running, and even if it goes to limp home mode, I might be able to drive this thing home. Yes, there is a little bit of paper that costs about $50 that I need to get off the DMV equivalent, but, you know, pay him the money, leave it out the front of his house, I take the keys home, and then, you know, we deal with all that tomorrow, and I get someone to follow me back in the G6, you know, in case it needs another jump start, in case I stall the bloody thing or whatever. Try and take all the back roads, and I know all the back roads from there. There's one little area where you may enter a freeway for about a half a mile, but aside from that, I should be able to get it fully home just on side roads. And it's a few miles up the road from where I used to work, actually. Anyway, I ring my mechanic, because I always take advice from this guy, and that's not the one I've been using lately, but it's the one that he lives locally. You know, my dad knew his parents. He's one of these ones who's been in this town for generations. So I ring him, and you know, he's always pretty honest and you know, reasonable price and everything. And he's not going to. He'll just give you advice straight off the bat, no expectations of doing any work or anything. He just tell you straight up. So he told me. Now have a guess what you think this thing cost. I've seen ones with blown engines for $3,000. I've seen good ones for $10,000 to $12,000. This other guy who had the one with a shit pump, he paid about $7 or $8. This motherfucker was $1,000. I'm not joking. And I thought, oh geez, I might miss out, or maybe there's a reason for it. And I look and it says the ad's been modified yesterday. Literally last night, the same night I was looking at it, a few hours prior, he'd modified the ad. I don't know if he'd put the ad up or he'd dropped the price on it, but that's the last time it had been edited. So, ring up me mechanic. Woo! Oh, the stories. Yeah, these are fucking nightmares. This one is, I think most of them are 2.5 litre. He's written 2.4 litre. It might be the 2.5 and he's just got it wrong. It could technically be called the 2.4 to differentiate it from the 2.5, because this one was the turbo one. This one's got the turbo diesel in it. It's a manual. I'm not too keen on manuals. But you know, if I'm getting some for $1,000, it's technically worth about, you know, 10 to 12 with a $2,500 fix and another windscreen, which is, well, I mean, a brand new windscreen on the G6 is $500 now. This is $2,001. The brand new windscreen's probably going to be $300 or something installed. So anyway, he's telling me some of the things. He said, these are fucking nightmares. He said, the common rail diesel, I thought common rail diesel only came out about 3 years ago. I said, what, right back in 2001, common rail? And he said, yes, they are. I said, what's the cost? I said, it's about $2,000 or something to do it, expecting him to say, yeah, 2.5, 3, something like that. He said, no, it's going to be, you know, somewhere between 5 and 7. Okay. So maybe that other guy didn't get so ripped off by the dealership. And then he said, but they're cunts of engines, you don't want them. They've got a timing chain. Everyone, oh, timing chain. Oh, that's good. Yeah, timing chain. Yeah. Except the tensioner in the thing is not a spring-loaded tensioner. It's an oil pressure-based tensioner. What's that mean? The tensioner comes on only as the oil's under pressure. What does this also mean? You change the oil, and of course, as some of you know, if you change your own oil, it might take you 15, 20 seconds for the oil pressure to build up. When you've completely drained it, new filter, poured stuff into the top, given it, you know, however many minutes or an hour or whatever to go down, you know, I find you can usually just, if you know the right amount, you can pour it in and then you can start it within 15 minutes anyway, just to you give it a chance to flow from the rocker cover right down to the bottom of the sump. Well, in doing that oil change, there's no fucking pressure on the tensioner for the timing chain. And they will do things like bend teeth on the sprockets, and they will, in bending the teeth, the valves go out of timing. Then the pistons hit the fucking valves and bend the valves. All this glorious shit that you couldn't believe. He was telling me he had another mate who done a service, just a run-of-the-mill, not a full-blown one, with, you know, not a radiator flush in it, just a plain Jane oil change. Just your most basic, straightforward service. Oil out, put another oil filter on, refill with fresh oil. Now he done that, and he started the bitch up, and it went fucking kaboom, and just disintegrated. and fucking all the timing chain was destroyed. The fucker there just killed itself. It was the end of it. Bent valves, killed the timing chain, like fucking bent the spring. That was it, you know. It was finished. Apparently, you also can't get engines for them. But if you can ever find an engine, matter Wreckers or whatever, I don't know if this is new price or Wreckers price, but it's getting hard to even get the engines. They're $9,000 for an engine. That's before you even look at the labour to put it in. That's just the bare engine on a pallet that you've bought at $9,000. My gosh. But he had this mate who done it and it blew up, and the customer wanted him to fix the engine, and he basically said, look, you know, like, what, am I going to miss several months' pay? And I think he ended up stiffing the customer. But the pure fact is it's shit. And with stories like doing an oil change and the motherfucker just explodes, the fucking timing chain disintegrates and all this bullshit, nobody wants to touch them. A lot of mechanics will not even fix the bastards because they don't want to deal with them. So I might have just dodged a bullet. The guy's going to text me his thingo, his address later on. I might just text back and said, mechanic said $6,000 to $7,000 for a new diesel pump, so forget about it. Lovely, big vehicle. I don't like manual, but this is a big bastard. Like, you can, it's not the short wheelbase, and it's not the super long wheelbase, it's the medium wheelbase. But you can stand up in this thing. Like, that's, you know, I'm 5'2", and maybe I couldn't, but someone 5'10", 5'11" could. You know, it's a really decently high roof. You know what they're like, these vans, you know. She's the big machine, you know. And, yeah, but not to be. Not to be. I thought I might be on a winner. A real winner. But some things are too good to be true. By the way, the engine in the Trajet has proven itself. There's a hell of a lot of, they're like small four-wheel drives, known as the Santa Fe. I think they got a different name in the States. They might not. I think they had, might be Canada got a different name. But anyway, they've all got that V6, the Delta V6. I don't know, well, I didn't know what the horsepower on that thing was. So anyway, I looked up this site and found out all the stats on the van. I knew there was a 4-cylinder diesel, 2-litre available. It turns out there's 2 4-cylinder diesels, and there's 2 4-cylinder petrols, and 1 V6. In Australia, I think it's very hard to come by diesels. I don't know if they're even available at all, because we have very shit grade diesel. But then again, I don't think the rest of Asia has very good grade diesel. I know Japan has worse quality diesel than we do. So, yeah. I haven't seen any, but I know Europe does have the diesels. Not many manuals. Most of them here are automatics. You know, it was a soccer mum mobile. In my case, it was a company vehicle, but you know what I'm saying. Interesting thing with that, that's probably one of the heaviest vehicles I've owned. I could not fucking believe it. Even the big long wheelbase machine, like your Australian equivalent of your Lincoln Town Car, which is sort of what I've got out there. It's not quite the Lincoln Town Car, but it's Australia's closest answer to it. That's my old machine out there. That was something like 1,650 kilos dry weight. That thing, 1,850 dry weight. By the time you put a few things in, it's averaging over 2 tonne. I didn't really know that it was quite that heavy. I know it's a bit gutless, but I didn't know it was quite that heavy. What else I find out that is quite surprising for the V6 with the automatic, because there's a very few, but you can get it with a manual. But you'll be battling to find any manuals in this country. There's a couple, but that's quite rare. In a van, that's already very few getting around. I was a little bit surprised, considering how gutless it is, but then when you consider the weight it's pulling, the V6 with the automatic, that's 173 horsepower. Now that wouldn't be at the wheels, that'd be like the engine type thing, or maybe, you know, the back of the transmission, but probably just the engine. I think that means 173 horsepower. I was a bit surprised. Because that's pretty good for a van. That's stunning for a van. But then, you know, it's almost 2 tonne of shit rolling around. So by the time you push 2 tonne of shit with 173 horsepower, it is a little bit gutless. It's all right once you get rolling, but when you're going on those freeway entrances, woo, you got to put the foot down to get it. You know, you've got a friggin' quarter mile, and you got to get the damn thing up to fucking 60 to 65 miles an hour. You're pushing it a bit, but anyway, looks like I'm continuing on with the van. I would have liked a Transit just because this bastard was so big I could put a shower in the damn back of it, you know, but and it would, you know, a lot more room, but yeah, they're nightmares. So we dodged a bullet.